I was never the best, and that is the one constant that I love talking about.
So today I have Will Terry with me here today. He is a freelance illustrator, and he's been doing it for quite a while now. He also teaches at SVS Learn and helped found it, and he is also a college university instructor, right? If I'm correct.
Mm-hmm.
So you've worked on lots of children's books. You've done projects for Coca-Cola and M&M, I believe, and you have an art book out recently that's kind of like you have a bunch of sketches of like pop culture characters as children.
I do. In fact, I have one right here.
Yeah, it's awesome. I flipped through it. If you guys get a chance, go check it out. I'll post a link in the description so you guys can see where you can buy that, or at least check it out, his posts and prints and stuff. So, yeah, he's awesome. So I just wanted to start out by asking you, were you always interested in art? You know, when you were a little kid, were you drawing all the time, or is this something that developed later in life for you?
I because I think that most people will never be the best, you know. And I when I was going to school, I was always worried. My logic at that time was, well, if artists who try to make a living at art starve, then the only chance you have is to be the best. But I wasn't the best. So I thought, well, if I try, I'll starve. So I was never really planning a career in art because I had just come up with this. I never talked to anybody about that. This was just something that I kind of came up with in my mind. But in every art class in high school, in junior high, high school, elementary school, I still remember there were always kids that were always better than me. So what I've come to realize is it really comes down to how bad you want it and not your current skill level, because you can pass up people along the way who just aren't as into it as you know?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I remember in high school, it was that way. There's some people that I thought like, man, they're way better than me and I want to do this for a living, and they don't even care about it. It's like a hobby for them.
Mm-hmm.
But just putting in the hard work and practice, I mean, I'd say for me personally, from what I've noticed, I'd say it's like 90% hard work and 10% inherent skill, you know, just like inherent ability. So,
yep.
So you'd been drawing since you were a kid. What made you finally decide that mindset you had wasn't true, where you decided, you know what, I'm going to do this, I can do it. And then what was the next step for you?
So I kind of eased into the water. I sucked at school so bad and I wanted to go to college because I felt like that was the only way. Right out of high school, I took a job as a carpenter's helper and I hated it. Mm-hmm. We did plumbing, you know, we did a little bit of everything. So we even did foundations and roofing and just everything. And I really found that I don't want to work outside in the cold, and I don't want to work down on my knees. I hate getting my hands dirty. So there was all these things that I knew I didn't want to do. And I knew I was destined to do them if I didn't come up with something else. So I thought, well, I'll have to go to college, but I didn't have the grades to get into college. So I found out that I could get let in on academic probation barely. And so I did that. But then, you know, my parents were like, well, you ought to take art classes because you can get good grades and that'll help raise your GPA up, you know. That's how I got through college.
So you got an art degree then, right?
I never finished. This kills my mom has passed away. I have 3 classes left. I was going to finish just for the sake of finishing actually about 3 years ago. And then I'm just too busy. I just don't have time. And it would cost me too much money in my time to where I just never could justify it. I finished my BFA, got an A in the BFA, my Bachelor of Fine Arts. I just have 3 lousy, stinking general ed classes. Like
what were they?
Writing, and because I went to BYU, a couple of religion classes.
So,
ironically.
So do you feel like your career has suffered because of that, that you don't have a degree?
Not at all. Not at all. And that's one thing that, we're programmed to know that the only way to get a job is to have that piece of paper. But luckily in the illustration world and in the animation world, they don't care about your degree at all.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even ask for it. And so I've never, in the thousands of jobs that I've done over the last 25 years, I'm coming up on my 25th year anniversary of being self-employed as an illustrator. And in those years, I've never been asked once if I had a degree.
So you don't have a degree and you're working as an illustrator. You don't have to go into too much detail, but for everyone that's interested, are you living in a cardboard box? Do you starve every day? Are you like scrounging to survive?
You can actually make a really good living. You can also kind of sort of pseudo starve. I actually made are we friends on Facebook?
Yeah.
Did you see that chart that I made? Will you starve as an artist?
Yeah.
Okay.
I saw that.
So I thought of that because I don't know anybody who's ever starved in the literal sense.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the benefits of living here in the U.S. I do realize that in some ways it was probably a calloused post because there are people that starve in the world, and I didn't mean to diminish anyone's experience who has really suffered, but I have suffered. I have gone through hard times as an artist. I've also gone through really, really lucrative times and everything in between. So, you can. There are artists, there are illustrators out there that are making a really good living. They're the top of the heap. Some of them aren't necessarily the top. Some of them did get a little bit lucky. Some of them are not really lucky, but as much as they are smart. And so if you take somebody like, I love talking about Matthew Inman, the guy that runs the Oatmeal webcomic. If any of your listeners want to look that up, he's made millions of dollars as an illustrator, really, as an author illustrator. And there are a lot of people like that. Most of the people that are making really good money are either in the publishing industry because they have tapped into getting royalties off of the things they've illustrated. The Harry Potter series got a small little royalty, and when you're talking about a property that huge, a small royalty can add up to big money.
Yeah.
So the people that have made a lot of money and haven't starved are typically the ones that are either getting royalties or have created their own product and the sky's the limit when you create your own product, because there is no salary. It's however many units you sell, right? And so this Matthew Inman's a great example because he sells merch and he sells a lot of it. And he even did the exploding kittens on. Have you seen that on Kickstarter?
That sounds really familiar.
He raised, I think it's either 6 or 8 million on his Kickstarter.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway.
So for you then, you obviously didn't get a degree, but you did go through most of college. So is the college education necessary to be successful? Is it possible to make it and be educated other ways besides going to college and get the knowledge you need in order to be successful at illustration?
So this is a really nuanced question because there isn't a yes or no answer. And I think the cool thing for me is I teach at the university, but I also own an online school. So I feel like I can give an answer from both sides. And I think that for some people, they can do it without college. I think other people really probably owe their career to the fact that they went to college. And I don't think you can say that one's better than the other, or that you can skip out on one or not skip out on it. I think there are some people out there who have definitely demonstrated that they can skip college and do just fine. And I think there are people who wouldn't have made it without their college experience. I think it matters. What really comes to bear on that answer more than anything is where that person is in their life at the time they're going through their college or or online experience, because some people don't. I've had students that, and I put myself in this group too, who I was sort of committed to making. I mean, I was committed enough to making art that I love making art, but not in the sense of working super hard.
Mm-hmm.
Working super hard came over time. In fact, I used to be scared that I used to think, well, I'll never make it because I can only spend 2 or 3 hours on a piece of art, and then I get ADD and I have to move on to something else. It's like I'm done. You know, like however it ends up after a couple hours, you know, maybe 3 or 4 hours at the most. That's I've lost interest. Now I've made that piece of art. I'm going to move on. And I knew that the art wasn't good enough at that stage, and I knew other people were spending 2, 3, 4, 5 times that amount of time. And I used to get scared, thinking, I can't do that, so I might not be able to compete. And what I can tell you is that time will lengthen over time as a natural process of just basically the desire to basically getting sick of your current level of output and what you're capable of. And then over time, it was almost just like, you look back a few years and you're like, wow, I'm working 10 hours plus on every project. I'm working 20 hours plus on a lot of projects. I'm working 30, 40, 50 hours. And you don't really consciously have to, you consciously strive for more. But I had students that I thought there's no way they're going to make it. Their commitment level is just not there. And then a few years after school, I'll see something they posted on social media, and I'm drawn to the image, and I'm like, wow, that's really nice. I wonder who did that. Oh my gosh, that's one of my former students. I never would have thought that they even cared enough to do that. So I think there are different advantages. You want me to talk about the advantages to online?
What I want to know, there's a lot of people that say it's absolutely necessary. You cannot be successful if you get a degree. And I mean, I agree. I think for some people, a degree is a way to go if that's what's best for them. But is it 100% necessary? Can you still be successful? I mean, clearly you did it, but are you just some sort of fluke? Are there alternatives to finding that information that you would get from going to college?
Yeah. So, I mean, I would put myself in the camp of illustrators who went through the full program, because I did. I finished all my art classes, so I got all that information, even though I didn't actually get the piece of paper because I didn't finish those last 3 classes that didn't have anything to do with art. So I would put myself in the group that went through college, but I know a lot of really successful artists that didn't go to college at all, and that was before there were online schools. But I'm starting to see other people that have just done online and are doing great. I think it really comes down to that commitment level. I don't think you can say, if you don't go to college and get that degree, you're not going to make it. But I think you have to look at the advantages. If I were advising the average person, right, I would say I would probably lean towards encouraging them to go to a 4-year college program. However, I think there's probably 20 or 30% of the people who are committed enough and dedicated enough and are, they're online, they're watching podcasts and listening to podcasts. They're connecting on social media. So they have a lot of friends. So they're finding out things. Because see, the thing is, when students go to a university program or art school or whatever, they are learning probably half of what they're learning is from each other, from information that they have found all over the place, from different people, from different sources online, from different teachers that they've met at different colleges, from professionals in the field. And they'll sit in class before or after class, or when you're working, and you're talking about stuff, and the conversation will lead to information that your teachers wouldn't even give you. So, but that half could be gotten online for sure, from hanging out with people in chat rooms or whatever. Like I said, or even illustration groups, people getting together. We have an illustration group here in Utah, down in Utah County, called Draw Lunch, and we meet every Friday. At least some people show up. Not everybody shows up every Friday. We've had as many as 40 or 50 people there. Wow. Just networking. They're all illustrators or people that want to become illustrators, and they're just hanging out and talking shop. That's education. That's a free education for a lot of people. And there's really nothing that in that environment that you couldn't talk about illustration wise with some of the top professionals in our area that would be more than willing to share that information. So, but there are a lot of introverted people out there and there's people who have come to our trial lunches who kind of just sit there quietly and don't say anything. Mm-hmm. Their learning is way down. I used to tell my students, I still do sometimes, if we have a studio class where we're drawing or painting, I'll tell my students, in the beginning of class, like, if you put headphones on and just, you're going to just, chillax the headphones during drawing, that's cool and all. It's enjoyable, but you're going to miss out on a lot of the little conversations that take place. Someone will ask me something in class, and I'll say to the whole class, hey, I'm going to explain this question to this student here, but you guys are all free to come over and listen or watch or whatever, and talk about it, because this pertains to everybody. And meanwhile, there's 2 or 3 people with their headphones on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So a lot of how you, even in the college experience, it comes down to the student. It comes down to what kind of person you are. I have students that I can just see in every class. I can say, if I had to lay a percentage on who's going to make it, I'd probably be pretty accurate. I'll be surprised every now and then, but some students are, they're so into it that they'll stay late after class asking things that are completely unrelated to what we're doing, but they just are dying to know the answer to something. And I give them a much better chance because they're seekers. They're making it happen. They're going beyond what is being dished out. Mm-hmm. So, by the way, sometimes I go off on tangents, so you can always steer it back in if I don't.
Okay.
I'll always forget what the original question was.
No worries. I'm sure everything you're saying, the people that are watching are going to just be lapping it up. So no worries. So you posted a video a little while ago that I really loved, and it was talking about how it was pretty recent, about how you should work for free.
Oh yeah.
And I completely agree with that. And I hear people, like you said, all the time, they get very fired up about working for free because they feel like they're being taken advantage of. And I had an experience where I kind of felt like I got taken advantage of, and I wasn't working for free, but I was working for really low pay. But despite the fact that I got taken advantage of, I still feel like it was worth it, because now I have, ever since I've been able to say I have experience working at an animation studio, and it's opened a lot of doors. So just to, I guess, kind of go back over what you said in your video a little bit, for the people who say you shouldn't work for free, why should you? What's the benefit of working for free, especially if you don't have a degree?
Okay. So there are definitely times where you shouldn't work for free. You won't always know when those are. There are definitely wolves out there trying to take advantage. So I don't want to paint it like, again, it's not a black or white right answer. And so saying, I take issue with the people that say you should never work for free, or you should. I actually don't ever hear anybody saying you should always work for free. It's always the opposite. You should never work for free. And basically the idea there is that, yes, you won't be taken advantage of, but you're also missing out on a lot of opportunity in life. And it's like the person that says, I'll never go outside because I don't want to get rained on. Well, okay, so you're stuck inside. There's a lot of cool things that can happen out in the rain. And the same thing with illustration is, there are one thing that I talked about was there are test images that people will ask for. Can you do this test image for me? Because we've got a huge project, a book, a graphic novel, an animation short, or something like that, where we want to make sure that you're the right person for it. Now, most people will agree that is a good time to do a test image for free to see. But then, and people in the comments on my video are like, well, make sure they, and I there's no way to possibly cover everything, but yes, they're right. You should maybe even have a little NDA or something like that you have them sign to say that, they're not going to be able to use your image for the final and stuff like that. Good luck enforcing that because you're small. You're David, and the Goliath is the big company. But whatever, if it makes people feel more comfortable to have a piece of paper, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the bigger reason to work for free is when the project is explained to you, and right away the idea is something that you can't, you want to do for your portfolio. It's so exciting. You're like, this is the perfect thing for me. Like, let's say you're into drawing monsters, and you just love drawing monsters, all different types, and you get this job offer that comes in that says, hey, we don't have any money, but this is going to be printed in this thing here, and this magazine or this advertisement or whatever it is. It might be a charity, and we need some really crazy monsters. You can do whatever you want. Okay, well, now you're in a situation where, and I'm not saying you absolutely should do this and work for free, but you, at the same time, you can do something that could come back in printed form, like a cover of a magazine or something that you can then leverage. It's exactly what you want to do. It fits exactly in your portfolio. You got to be the art director. People weren't making changes. And by the way, when I have worked for really low pay in the past or for free, I have made that a non-negotiable. Okay, I will do this thing for you, but I get to be the art director. You do not have, if you don't like it, then don't use it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But I'm going to make it my way. And that way it's a win-win, because then you have something like you mentioned, you said you got experience for working for the animation studio or whatever the job was. And no one can take that away from you. In any interview from then on, you've worked, and the client doesn't need to know how much you were paid, or that you did it for free or whatever, or that it was extremely low pay. But the cool thing for me is that you will end up sometimes doing illustrations that fit an assignment, and it is very different from doing a portfolio piece that is something that you just kind of came up with on your own, versus trying to illustrate an article or a concept for a client where you have to kind of fit into some parameters. You have to create the illustrations that fit with type and go through that whole exercise. Mm-hmm. It's like an apprenticeship. Like, why do people not complain that other people do apprenticeships? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I should have put that in my video, but it just kind of popped into my head right now. It's like if someone says, well, I'm doing an apprenticeship, nobody goes, you should never do an apprenticeship for free, Right. And they don't freak out, but that's what, you can look at it as a part of your continuing education to do some of these jobs if they fit into your vision. Now, where you're going to get into trouble is where you accept to do something, and then after you accept it, you're like, crap, I have to do this thing that I'm going to hate, that I don't want to do. Well, then that's definitely a case where you should not work for free or for low pay. But again, I've had dozens of jobs that I've done for low pay or free that have ended up in my portfolio and gone on to get me big, huge jobs later on, because the client saw this thing in my portfolio and thought I'd be perfect for it. Mm-hmm. So I can say working for free has made me tens of thousands of dollars, whereas the person that says, I've never worked for free, mm-hmm. Okay, you've never been taken advantage of.
Right.
But, what have you missed out on? You can't calculate, can't quantify that.
Do you ever have people say to you in response to that, say, well, I can't afford to work for free. I just can't afford it. They're not getting any work otherwise. All they have is free offers, and they're just like, I can't afford to work for free.
Right.
Do people say that to you?
So I would say to that, so it comes down to this then. If your time is full, if your schedule's full with paying work, then yeah, you don't need to work for free. But if you're saying, I have all this time and all I'm getting is offers to work for free, so I'm not going to do any of them because I have to feed myself, then that doesn't really make sense, because you're not making any money anyway. So at that point, you should go out and get a job doing something else to make the money to pay the rent. I mean, I get it. Working for free is not paying the bills, but you're paying something else. You're paying bills in the future with that money, So the future you is going to say, well, why did you turn that down? We could have used that to get more money down the road, Now, I'm not suggesting that you fill your life working for free and just doing all this stuff for someone else. There comes a point where and it's also conceivable that someone could be working for free and doing amazing work, job after job after job, but then they're not doing their due diligence and getting that work in front of potential clients. So now they have this amazing portfolio, but no one is seeing it. Then they have another problem, right? And the only thing separating anybody from getting good work is the fact that the right people need to see what you're doing, and that takes time too. And so if you have a really, really great portfolio and you don't need a ton of extra things in there, what you really need is to get that out, then that time spent marketing would probably be better spent than working on more pieces for free.
Mm-hmm. I think that's awesome advice. So you have SVS Learn, which for anyone out there who doesn't know, it's basically an online school where you guys have classes on pretty much everything from like basic drawings to portraits to digital painting to character design. And I've taken a pretty good handful of those, and they're awesome. What are the benefits to that, I guess? Why? I mean, it's cheaper, but is it really as valuable knowledge as what I could learn from going to college? Is it really going to help me get better, or what's the difference between watching YouTube tutorials as opposed to taking your courses?
That's a great question. So you have, let's categorize them. You have YouTube that's free. And then you have online schools like Schoolism, Chris Oatley, SVS, things like that, Noman. And then you've got college, the college experience. And they all have different advantages. YouTube's one of their big advantages, obviously, is that it's free, right? And you can find amazing things on YouTube. There are some of the best artists in the world are sharing tips and knowledge and things like that on YouTube. I would say that it'd be pretty hard to fill in all the gaps on YouTube, because most of the time what people are doing is they're doing a tutorial on a specific thing, or they're showing you a trick or a way to use software or something like that. So the problem for the student there would be to complete their education. How are they ever going to know if they've got everything when they're picking up little bits and pieces like that, right? Mm-hmm. Not that it's impossible. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of work to try to find everything that you want. But it probably could be done. Mm-hmm. I think what we're doing is we make it easier for a small amount of money per month. Right now we're at $15 a month. You're getting more complete tutorials, more complete in general, more complete classes. Like, for instance, our children's book class is the same class that I taught at the university, plus a lot more. So I added a bunch to it, simply because I could, and I created a 200-page PDF manual that goes with it, both for the marketing side and for the illustration side. And I think it's like 22 hours worth of video.
And that's $15 a month for everything, for all of your, and you have like what, 30 plus courses?
Right, and that's just one class. So there's 30, so 22 hours of video all on the same topic in chronological order. You're going to have a hard time finding that on YouTube, but you can find that at a university. The advantage of let's talk about the disadvantage of university versus online, and then we'll talk about some of the advantages. So, or art school. The disadvantage would be for going to your local university or college is that you probably can't get the exact classes that you want. You'll be able to get a lot of them, but like, for instance, a lot of schools don't have a children's book class. A lot of schools don't have a comic book class, which we have that too. Taught by someone who, for instance, Jake Parker, he just finished drawing Rocket Raccoon for Marvel and doing the comics. I don't know how many issues he did, but he did a bunch. Mm-hmm. So he taught the comic book class. So you have somebody who's basically at the top of the food chain on what they're working on, teaching a comic book class. And to toot my own horn a little bit, I have illustrated a few children's books, somewhere around 30.
A few.
And and I'm teaching the children's book class. Whereas, you could go to a university, they might touch on that, an art school, or they might have the exact class you want. There are really good art schools that have a good children's book class that will bring in people that can really do it and do a really good job. Usually they are the higher end art schools. At your local university or college, you're likely to not find those specific classes. But you can find really good art teachers that are teaching the fundamentals, which we also teach. So I would say it's that specialized thing. We can pull. The other advantage we have is pulling.
And by we, you're referring to SVS Learn, right?
Right. Okay. We can pull teachers. Like we've got a teacher in Israel. We've got a teacher in Stockholm. We've got teachers all over the U.S., Canada, and we're looking at a lot of others. So we can go out and pick the exact teacher we want, and they can teach online. Versus the college, you're kind of stuck with who you got. Sometimes you'll find amazing teachers at your college. Sometimes you won't. I know artists that have had amazing experience in their art program from a state college, and they just happen to have some amazing artists working there, and they just, for the bang for the buck, they did really well. And I've known people on the opposite side who, and I would love to name a few names because I've talked to them, and they're self-taught and they're at the top of their game, big time named artists who went through their college program, felt like they didn't learn anything, and then really started doing workshops and paying to travel to go and do live workshops and online workshops and mentorships and stuff to really find out the stuff that they missed. On the other side, where college, I think, really helps, that where we have a hard time competing with them, is the one-on-one when you're in life drawing, when you're in an illustration class and you're really not getting it. To have a teacher right there being able to draw on your paper or show you something or spend time. The communication is always easier in person than it is online. That barrier just makes it a little bit tougher. On the other hand, we can draw over your work when we do our live classes, which are our live classes are feed into the subscription, so the live classes are a premium. But we'll take a student's work and just draw over what we would have done differently. And that technology of me using my Cintiq monitor here at home, where I can draw on someone's piece anywhere in the world, and they can see it live, is really helpful, but I can't draw on your pad of paper, that's in your house, so there's advantages and disadvantages. We like to think of what we're doing as an enhancement to a lot of college programs, but for some it'll be, and when we were at CTN last weekend in Burbank, which is CTNX, which is the Creative Talent Network, we had a lot of our students coming up to us that we had never met before, that are subscribers and stuff, and they would tell us most of them had taken Schoolism as well, or are currently doing Schoolism and Chris Oatley and Noman and some of the others. Then they're just Frankensteining their education together, and loving it. They're getting taught by whoever they want. They can pick their teacher. They don't have to show up on the first day of class to find out who staff is, from the catalog, staff. They actually get to pick their teacher. So right. I think, having not had the experience of being able to take any classes online, it's really hard for me to know what the differences are from someone that's maybe younger or even older that are doing it for the first time. I think that it would be, I really think that they enhance each other. I don't think that, and the other thing, and a lot of people will probably get a little upset with me saying this, but I think, gosh, if you can get into college and take some of the classes, but not necessarily graduate, I mean, that's another great way of getting the best of both worlds, is, paying for what you use, with the idea that you could always go back and finish later. However, that doesn't happen for a lot of people.
Right.
because a lot gets in the way. And I know that there's a lot of parents out there that would probably hate to hear that, not finishing and not getting the paper. What are you doing? So
No, that's awesome. All right, so I have one final question for you.
yeah.
What is kind of the biggest pitfall you see for young artists in today's industry? People trying to break in, the one thing that kills the future of their career or kills it before it ever even gets off the ground.
Okay. Can I give you two?
Yeah, go for it.
The first one is not being open to new ideas. And by that, I mean, we get very rigid in our thinking. We get into our camps, like, in the art world, I'm a sculptor, I'm a painter. Someone else is like, I'm a graphic designer, I'm an illustrator. That's what I am. I'm an illustrator. And my challenge or my encouragement would be to not define yourself that narrowly, but look at yourself as a creator. Your talents in art can be applied in many different ways, and never forget that. That can, when you lock yourself down into thinking, you can eliminate yourself from really good possibilities. For instance, I worked for a long time. For the first 15 years, I only did illustration. That's how I thought of myself. Going forward, I started working on ebooks and story apps and games, and even publishing my own book. And in starting an online school, which I never thought I would ever do. So that leads into the second part of it, which is basically, it's like a two-part thing, which is, if you can think of yourself as a creator type of a person, where you can basically do anything you set your mind to, then it allows you to also think in terms of being an entrepreneur. The artist entrepreneur is one of the most powerful people today. As jobs are getting outsourced, we're finding that a lot of the people that did it the right way, they got a degree in accounting or in business management or a lot of different degrees. They're finding that their work is being outsourced or automated. So like, my accountant, they're using a lot of software that has taken over a lot of the junior accountant positions and things, like a lot of the entry level positions. So these people that lost their jobs, they did everything the right way, and now they're out of a job. The other thing is retailers, right? So retailers today, it used to be that you could regionally become a retailer of just products, right? You could make your own store or something and sell products. Well, now those brick and mortar stores are just getting decimated, and they're closing shop all over the place because people just buy their stuff online from the cheapest reseller. And so, in a world that's being automated, in a world that is mass producing products, the artist that can create something from nothing, number one, has the goods that people want, right? They can create products that people desire. And if they're the creator, that means no one else in their store can sell it unless you as the creator sell that right? So there's that. But also, if you think a little further about being the retailer yourself and selling that product on your own, now you've got something that you can sell that no one else has. There are tons of examples. I could talk for another hour on just different examples of people doing that. But that would be my biggest challenge, is to see yourself that way. Also, sneak one more thing in there. Combining two artistic disciplines can make you that much more potent. So again, Matthew Inman, the guy that created the oatmeal, or Mo Willems, the guy who wrote and illustrated "Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus" and all those many books, and tons of other examples that I've talked about in the past. Scott Adams. Scott Adams created Dilbert. He said, well, I wasn't very good at writing and I wasn't very good at drawing, but I put them together and something magical happened. And so I think it's hard enough to become the illustrator, right? Because you have to learn this. You're struggling to learn this art craft, but don't eliminate the idea of working as and combining another art discipline like writing to make your own product, because then you can really control that content. I have a friend right now who went through an animation program, was doing really well. He was storyboarding in Hollywood, getting tons of work, fell in with a group of writers who kind of said, well, why are you storyboarding? You're really creative. You're really funny. You could be writing. Do you know how much money you'd make if you were writing? Well, he started learning how to write. And now he's making a lot more money writing and loving it. And he can also storyboard, so he can do both. It makes him that much more dangerous. So those are the things. Don't limit your thinking down to defining yourself into this little tiny box of I am an illustrator. I have to find illustration work. There's tons of stuff that you can do. It's scary to try to go out there, and it's scary to think about, right? But it's really, really liberating when you do, and you'll be amazed at the things you can create.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you chatting with me today. Lots of really good information there. Awesome. It was really nice to meet you. So appreciate it. And I hope you have a good rest of your week.
You too. Thanks a lot for the opportunity.